Hello, What's Online Works here, and today we're going to be looking at another way of making hotline mortar. Except this way it's going to be a little bit more efficient, and we are going to have a little bit more of an in-depth look into ratios and things. So one thing to say about these videos and the way that we're trying to do stuff is we're trying to ease people into it and break up large bits of information and make them into smaller, more easily digestible chunks. So I don't know about you, but I cannot watch an hour-long video, but I can watch 6-10 minute videos. So the idea is to break things up into easily digestible video formats and cover all the different types of hotline mortar mixing, line mortar mixing, and then progress on to things on to do with jobs, application, and so on. So the previous video that we made, it's sort of the easiest possible way we've found of making a hotline mortar mix, and like we said in that video, it's suitable for a little bit of patching in, or maybe you're pointing your chimney breast or something like that. The point of this one is that maybe you're a little bit more knowledgeable in the subject, or a little bit more hands-on, and you want, or you've got a bit of a bigger job on, and you want a more efficient and better, I guess, way of making hotline mortar. So now that that's out of the way, first things first, most important of all, PPE. I'm going to pop my mask on, like so. Then I'm going to put my glasses on, and then I'm going to put my gloves on. So, most important thing, sorted. Now, let's get this on. I'll explain to you what I'm doing, and then we'll have a little bit of a boring conversation about ratios that might fill some blanks in to do with how this stuff works. So, first thing to say, this type of bucket, obviously it can't be a plastic bucket like a Gorilla bucket or a B&Q bucket, otherwise you blow the backside off of it. Trust me, I've done it. This is a rubber feed bucket. We have lots of stuff here that's big, industrial scale, big mixers and things. You don't need to go out and buy all this tackle to be able to do it. You can get a little metal bucket like this one here from B&Q for a couple of quid. It'll work in much the same way, but it's just obviously this moves about, so I can pick it up and move it around scaffolding and things. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take one, and remember in regards to ratios, one can be anything. It can be a teaspoon, a cup, or a ton bag. And I'm going to just gently pour it out. Come on. In the bottom with my barrel like so. That dust is exactly why it's important to wear. And I'm just going to smooth it all out down the bottom. So, there we go. Now, in this metal bucket from B&Q that my labourer broke the handle for because he's a winkle spanner, I've got 3 parts of sand with 1/3 of whatever the part is of water. Now, there we is on that, I'll explain it in a moment. And I'm just going to dump it ever so gently, always steady, on top of this line here. Then I'm going to take my trusty pointing trowel, or bull nose, a flaunching trowel, whatever you want to call it, and I'm just going to spread this wet sand out over the bottom of the bucket like so. Lovely. Little bit of residue in the bottom. So, bucket, obviously we're using as feeder tubs because they're easier for us, but you can use a metal bucket in much the same way. So we put 1 part of lime into the bottom of the bucket, then we put 3 parts of sand into another bucket. Obviously that one doesn't have to be heat proof. We add 1/4 of whatever 1 part of the sand is of water. We give it a mix round so the sand is nice and damp. and then we put the sand, the damp sand, on top of the lime. And what that's doing is it's giving us a very efficient slate. Now, a slate, can't remember if I spoke about it in the other video, but I know we did in the health and safety video. A slate is the word for the exothermic reaction that takes place when water and lime are mixed. Quicklime. What's happening there is you take a piece of stone in the lime cycle. You start with a piece of stone, a piece of limestone. You add heat, leave it for a bit. Then, when you add water, it releases that heat and it turns back into a stone. So you can imagine how utilitarian that is in terms of traditional building. The reaction that's taking place, the slaking, the exothermic reaction, is being compacted by the damp sand that is on top of the slate. So, when lime slakes, it essentially doubles in its volume. And this is where a lot of misconceptions about ratios pertaining to hot limes come from. So, if you were to mix a putty, for example, at 3 to 1, the lime would be too weak. The mix wouldn't be lime rich enough. And the reason for that is because traditionally, when you mix at 3 to 1, you're mixing an unslaked lime at 3 to 1. So, when we did this previous video, we had 3 parts of sand to 2 parts of lime. And the reason for that is that we're accounting for an insufficient slake. That's why I wouldn't use that method on a big repointing job. It's inefficient and it's not a particularly brilliant slake, but it's the easiest bloody way of doing it. This method, we're ensuring that the volume of lime is increasing by 2 points. More so, it's 1 point something, but for simplicity's sake, it almost expands to double volume. So, when we mix like this, what we end up with is a lime that comes out at 1.5 sand to 1 part lime, because we've got 3 parts of sand and 1 part of lime, but because of the process that we're using, because of the slaking that's happening, that moisture that's reacting with the sand, it's doubling in volume. So we're getting 1.5 to 1. That's why in the previous video we had 2 parts lime instead of 1. That's why this method, it's a little bit more complicated, but it's certainly more efficient and it's certainly more historically accurate, because obviously if you were a traditional builder, you were ordering lime, obviously you're going to want to you're only going to, like, if you can use a slightly different method and only buy half as much lime, you only buy half as much product, it's more economical. So this has been left to slake for, and this is a very precise measurement, the length of time it's taken me to drink half of my coffee. 5 or 10 minutes. So the next step, I'm going to re-up on my safety precautions. I'm going to make a little indentation into this lovely pie. I don't know if you'll be able to see the heat that's coming off of that lime there. It's lovely and warm. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this council pop, water, as it's more commonly known, and just add a little splash. Now, obviously, in regards to efficiency, what I would do in this situation is I'd get a paddle mixer out and give it a good whiz round. But for the sake of educational purposes, so you can see how to mix this mortar by hand, we'll mix it by hand. Now, one thing to say about this method is because you've already pre-dampened your sand, it's going to take a heck of a lot less water than you think it's going to take. So, you notice I just added a splash. That's just so I can work things around nicely, like so. And I'm going to give it all a good mix up around all nice together, like this. Stirring mortar. There we go. And then once I've sufficiently get everything a nice little mix together, I'm going to make a little dome in the middle like you do when you make pasta. Pour a little bit of water in, just a touch. And then I'm going to fold it all back in together like so and keep mixing it. Obviously this is much easier with a paddle mixer. But if I do it by hand I should be able to show you the type of workability that we're looking for. Oh, obviously, if I was going to add a Polzanic into this mix, if you don't know what that is, look at his other video on the subject. I think I've put a bit in this because it's going up the chimney. What I'd do is I would add my Polzanic into the bucket with the wet sand and get all the mix up. A little bit more of a splash of water. There we go. Just keep folding it round and mixing it. Very similar in principle to the other method we showed you. It's just this method is more economical and it gives you a lot more muck for your buck. Little bit more water, always gradual. And then just keep folding that round like so. The reason for the gradual adding of water is twofold. One, I don't want to add too much and make a soup